Hey guys, on here, it's time to dive into New Rockstar's breakdown of the Easter eggs and hidden details we might have missed during the Book of Boba Fett episode 6. This episode was nuts, man. So many things, so many surprises. Dave Filoni really went out of his way to spoil us in the middle of this. With one episode to go, the stakes are high. We've got Cad Bane on the prowl with the Pikes, and I'm hoping for a showdown between him and Boba Fett, but we'll just have to wait and find out. Aside from that, though, before we even get into that episode, though, we got a lot of stuff to talk about, and a lot of stuff I'm sure Eric has to say in regards to this episode and all the lovely little surprises that we caught, and probably a lot that those bigger surprises distracted us from that were hidden in the background. So we'll just have to wait and see. If you're not subscribed to New Rockstars, check these guys out. They put in a lot of work for these breakdowns, doing Star Wars, Marvel, all kinds of stuff, man. Anyway, guys, let's go ahead and jump in. Here we go.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and this is a breakdown of the Book of Boba Fett, Episode 6, From the Desert Comes a Stranger, an episode ironically filled with familiar faces, familiar music, familiar trauma, so filled that Boba Fett is really back to his OT status of sulking silently in the corner. Yet still, I cannot help but squeal like a Gamorrean at all this nostalgia porn, because there's actually so much in this episode that is easy to miss, trust me, and a deeper meaning to why we are seeing Luke and Grogu Jedi Hour on this Boba Fett series. So let's break it down. You know I've spent more time pouring through this episode than anyone, down to the point of just staring at VFX Luke's lips. Also, you can get this awesome Boba Fett inspired shirt exclusively at NewRockstarsMerch.com. It's really the best way to support New Rockstars, and you can get your hands on this great design before it goes back.
They do have some good shirts,
so
man. I got a bunch of their stuff.
Of a moisture evaporator. Now, in the engineering of these vapor spires, the vanes really serve as a humidity sensor, a way of determining how much moisture on the day can be coaxed from the air and condensed in water through these chilling bars. So these vanes spinning wildly isn't just classic Western imagery foretelling a storm of brewing. It's literally a prime moisture collection day here on the outskirts of Mos Pelgo, Freetown. A matter of life and death for these desert dwellers, all interfered with because of this stupid drug deal. Two ways the Pikes are threatening Tatooine and must be stopped. These Pikes keep the spice in the same kind of chest that we saw in episode 2, and their credits are kept in the same kind of Camtono storage unit used throughout these series based on the ice cream maker prop carried by Wilbur Hood on Cloud City and Empire Strikes Back. Good old Wilbur always gonna get a shout out every time one of these things shows up. Cad Bane, the returns in the Mandalorian Chapter 9, stepping into frame in that classic Western gunslinger shot, hand already on his blaster, the same frame that they used on Han Solo in A New Hope when he approached Jabba the Hutt. Originally deleted from the 1977 cut, added back in a special edition. Cobb says,
"And these stripes indicate I'm the marshal of said territories."
Yeah, those red stripes on white is the same insignia on the Marshal badge Captain Carson Teva gave Cara Dune, minus the New Republic icon, meaning these stripes are a widely accepted symbol of authority in the Outer Rim. The Pikes choose violence, and he takes down 3 of the 4, but notice he only actually fires twice. The first shot taking out 2 of the Pikes, the second just taking out the third guy, but the way those last 2 were lined up, he could have gotten them both, something this final Pike realizes, as Cobb tells him,
"I can see you're the smart one."
Yeah, probably an involuntary gesture from Timothy Oliphant, but the wink means the same kind of thing. Like, trust me, but I'll also kill you. Also, that gusty opening shot also showed how this is a perfect windy day for scattering some spice dust taken off the streets. Flowing down with probably some bantha who is high. Mando pilots his custom N1 starfighter to the planet where Luke brought Grogu after we last saw them in the Mandalorian Season 2 finale. Now, to be clear, this planet is not identified. It is the same planet where Luke had his school, the one destroyed in the Last Jedi flashbacks, but that planet was deliberately never identified in Star Wars canon. Like, this is not
it's completely unnamed so far.
World that Luke and Lor San Tekka visited with Ben Solo years after this. In Legends, after the Empire fell, Luke did build a new school on Yavin 4, but the audio description of this episode just calls this a verdant planet, and I think if it was Yavin 4, they would say so. Like, we don't see the massive red main planet of Yavin that Yavin 4 orbits as a moon. There's no Temple of Massassi anywhere. Folks, like the many sightings of gibberish Orabesh in the show, sometimes it's okay to just not have an answer yet. In Mando's cockpit, the controls were all recreated from when Anakin piloted one of these in Phantom Menace. But remember, with Anakin, they were red because that fighter was initially on autopilot for him, but they shifted to blue when R2 released the controls, as they are now with Mando. Also, you'll notice the radar navigation is now on the left instead of the right, and Peli added that booster switch, and there's also a new display in orange and red in the upper right with Orbesh that translates to ATT PSI, PSI being a unit for pressure, maybe an adjustment for the exposed droid port now being closed off in a jump seat. Although when Mando lands and hops out, briefly the camera does frame R2
Oh,
back in the
that's
canopy of
cool.
that port. R2 greets him.
Oh, that's good.
I assume those beeps translate to, hey, I once piloted one of those Naboo starfighters with a future war criminal whose son is now the dean of the new school we're building. Ain't life crazy? Mando sees a boulder rising, we think, by itself from behind the ridge, as if maybe Luke or Grogu might be doing some rock
definitely
force bench
faked me out for a
pressing like
second.
Luke did on Dagobah. Instead, this is actually in the mandibles of an ant droid, a new form of tech in Star Wars. I love these things because, like ants, their
I
bodies are
wasn't.
segmented
I was
into
like, I
three
swear, I was
cubes,
like, I
colored
don't
white and
recognize these
blue
things.
R2's colors. And you'll notice their front cube is larger with a photoreceptor in order to see over their cargo that they're carrying, just like R2's photoreceptor. And then one of these checks in with R2. They have this little exchange. The android nods. Just seems like R2 might be the ant queen of this colony who runs this hive mind. And yes, they are building the Jedi school that we saw in the Last Jedi flashbacks. The building that they eventually complete is that same beehive-shaped structure that we saw at the center of the surrounding additions and dorm huts that are visible later on. The same school where Luke will train his nephew Ben Solo before Luke freaks out and scares the shit out of Ben, leading to his defection. The Kylo Ren comics actually show that it was not Ben who went on a killing spree and burned down the temple, but instead a bolt of lightning from Snoke, Palpatine. And then Ben Solo
blew
fled
it up.
and later on adopted the identity of Kylo Ren. Luke in Grogu's meditation session is introduced with these beautiful shots of nature, swaying bamboo, light beaming through the leaves, and just
It's gorgeous
music.
Yeah, I would love to just kind of chill out in a little place like this, man.
The flute
For
is
real.
Ludwig Göransson's Grogu theme, the music we heard when we first learned the name of Grogu.
Grogu and I can feel each other's thoughts.
Grogu?
Grogu gets distracted, force lifting a
I love
frog
that,
into his
man.
mouth until Luke catches him.
Grogu.
Gilly.
Sorry.
Luke, in a way, mirrors the demonstration Yoda did for him, lifting the entire X-Wing from the swamp water. Now, we gotta say, the VFX on Luke's face is a solid improvement.
Yeah,
This time, they
like,
put less of his
way,
dialogue on screen
way,
close-up,
way
at least
more
at first in the
improved.
episode.
All right, let's go for a walk.
Like,
Since mouth movement
huge.
is really the hardest part of this animation.
Yeah, and
Reportedly,
it's still
Lucasfilm also
off,
hired
but-
YouTuber Shamook, who created a much better deepfake of Luke after the Mandalorian Season 2 finale. Mark Hamill returns to voice Luke here, though it sounds like they directed him to deliver his lines in a calmer, more zen state in order to avoid having to animate a lot of facial emotion. This is all just especially impressive when you realize we're really just watching two puppets. One practical, one digital. It all feels like a magic trick. Like, notice when Grogu goes from sitting to standing to stepping all in the same shot, we see freaking daylight under his body, meaning they must have, I guess, keyed out the puppeteer or used VFX to do this. The fact that we can't tell and just assume Grogu is a real living toddler is magic. Luke tells Grogu about Yoda. I love how he force lifts him to keep up.
His name was Yoda. He was small like you, but his heart was huge. He once said to me, "Size matters not." That's how he talked. He would speak in riddles.
Yes, you can hear John Williams' Yoda theme in there, which always brings tears to my eyes. Size matters not is the first time we see this Luke in this episode speak in close-up. And yeah, it is pretty hard to animate the impact of the S and the T consonants, which sit at the front of the mouth, especially using your lips and your teeth. However, I gotta say, it's pretty clever of them to delay this close-up until we get to a line that is a specific meaningful callback to the original trilogy, because mentally, all of us viewing this might be focused less on the mouth, instead thinking back to Yoda in Empire, and that's...
I mean, I spend most of my time just looking him in the eyes, so a lot of the time it doesn't really, like, impact me all that much.
Judge me by my size, do you?
But still, it is noticeable when you
Major
pay
props
attention to
stand-in
it.
actor Graham Hamilton, who replaced Max Lloyd-Jones, who actually cameoed last episode as an X-Wing pilot, for doing the physical embodiment of Luke Skywalker here. Hamilton just did a great job capturing Mark Hamill's posture from Return of the Jedi on this "he would speak in riddles" line. Notice his neck is sloped forward. Like, he definitely studied the tapes of Hamill on that bridge in Endor. Dave Filoni directed this episode, but it was written by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni together, and I think they might have written words for Luke with easier consonant sounds to animate, relying specifically on repetition. Like, notice in this clip.
Have you heard anyone talk like that back home? Do you remember back home?
The K sound sits in the back of the mouth, uses less of the front part of the mouth than the lips and the teeth, and then the B and the M really just require the lips to close. So think about it. Back home, a lot easier to animate than a T and an S, which are more complex. So repeating the phrase back home, from our eyes, it's much more lifelike. I really do think they were being strategic about what words they tried to have this puppet pronounce. Luke helps
Probably.
Grogu remember the night of Order 66 in the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, which Ahsoka teased for us last season on The Mandalorian.
Someone took him from the temple. Then his memory becomes dark.
Here, we actually see it from Grogu's point of view, all framed in the cornea of an eye, which
Yeah.
initially ripples out from Grogu on the jungle floor and then spreads outward to fill the whole frame, telling us that it is really Luke's eye peering into Grogu's memory. As the memory begins, listen closely.
I love this effect.
Yes, first, we hear the voices of Jedi children, suggesting that Grogu might have initially been in the room or around those younglings that Master Anakin slaughtered, or perhaps could have been in a different Padawan class. Because we see these 3 Jedi fighting the 501st Clone Trooper Battalion. You can tell it's them. They got the same blue-plated armor. These are the troopers that Anakin led into the temple, the best of the best, which is bad news for the Jedi. The 2 Jedi on the outside are robed, but based on their hands, they do appear to be adults. And the one in the middle is a man with long blonde hair tied in a bun. He does look a bit like the Jedi Temple's Battlemaster, Sinet Dralin,
Yeah,
who at the time
that was my
of
initial
66
thought,
was
but
teaching a class of Padawans, though it is believed that Anakin Skywalker killed him.
Yeah.
The security holocron showed Anakin slaying the students of that class, so I'm assuming this guy is probably someone else. We also don't know if these Jedi were aware Grogu was behind them, because he does seem to be peering out from some kind of concealed container.
Yeah.
I still think there is some validity to a theory that I think is crazy, but I really love, that Grogu could have been hidden inside of the shell of R2-D2. R2 was present at the temple during the massacre, right after the massacre, when Anakin
a lot of us
brought
have
him back to
speculated
Padme's
that maybe
lab.
R2 had something to do with it.
Freaked out exchange with 3PO.
Hush, not so loud.
And notice here that the trooper did not say, grab the kid. He just pointed forward and said, go, 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 let's move. I think these troopers were really just moving past something like an astromech droid, oblivious to what was hidden inside. And during this fight, all the green and blue blades, the blue blaster bolts, reflect in Grogu's
see.
eyes as he reacts
One
to
day, I
terror.
guess.
His eyes focus specifically on that green lightsaber hilt rolling toward him out of a dead hand. It's just also worth noting that when Grogu witnessed Luke saving them with his lightsaber in that Mandalorian Season 2 finale, the color of the security camera monitor was shaded in monochrome. Grogu did not see that green blade in action until Luke came through the doors and zipped up the blade back in the hilt. I'm wondering if Grogu may associate a green lightsaber blade with that trauma from the night of Order 66.
Aw.
And so, igniting Yoda's saber might not be the cool toy that Grogu would be that eager to revisit the pain of. And as Ahsoka said, Grogu's memory goes dark at this point. He now awakens from his memory in a totally new location than where he was before. He's now at a riverbank, meaning revisiting that memory exhausted him into a kind of coma for a period. Mando, meanwhile, wakes up to find Ahsoka Tano.
I'm an old friend of the family.
Yeah,
Ah,
me and Luke's war
yes.
criminal dad used to be tight. Now, concept art in the credits suggested that Mando was actually gonna instinctively fire at her, but Ahsoka might have redirected that blast using the Force. I guess like how we saw Kylo Ren using the Force to stop a blaster bolt. Ahsoka says,
There's nothing now, but will someday be a great school. Grogu will be its first student.
yes, confirming that the school that Luke later inducts his nephew into was actually initially built to teach Grogu, a student who, I believe, we will learn, will rebuff Luke Skywalker, setting up Luke to not yet learn the error of the Jedi orthodoxy by the time Ben defects. But at this point in history, Luke and Ahsoka are full of optimism.
There is no place in the galaxy more safe than here with Luke.
For now.
Are you sure about that? But one of the things that impresses me most about this episode is the way it really walks a difficult line with how much we should trust the Jedi way at this point in history.
I don't understand why you're all right with Skywalker's decision to train the kid when you wouldn't.
Because it was his choice. I don't control the wants of others.
Yeah, that little sharp exhale from Ahsoka reveals the doubt of one teacher politely disagreeing with the mentorship agreed by another. Like, she did not want to train Grogu because she sensed in that kid the same fear of losing a loved one that she saw in Anakin. But Luke never knew Anakin as a man before Darth Vader, just a regretful, withered old man under the armor. So Luke believes he really can be the guru that Yoda and Obi-Wan were to him. Mando and Ahsoka debate over whether Grogu should be called a foundling or a Padawan.
I will just say that, like, I did kind of raise a little bit of an eyebrow during this kind of like attachment debate. Obviously, I know Ahsoka comes from that old guard. She grew up in the temple. She grew up in that lifestyle. She knows what that means. But as far as Luke goes, it does make me, like I said, raise a little bit of an eyebrow to him calling out Grogu's attachment as a weakness when we know Luke at this point and beyond this point continues to cherish his attachments to his sister, Han, Kylo eventually. Like, he keeps these attachments, and it was his attachment to his father that won out in the end in Return of the Jedi. So it's just like, I don't know. It still seems like a weird lesson to me that he would kind of backtrack on that and not call out that and make an amendment to that in his Jedi Order now that he's starting it. But I could also correlate that in a way that maybe now that he is taking on a student and he's not the student, maybe there's a sense of defiance that he had as a student where he was like, okay, I can win out in this way, but when that responsibility's on your shoulders of somebody else, maybe then you wouldn't want to. It's kind of like do as I say, not as I do kind of thing. Whereas, I don't know. It's just a little weird. It's just a slightly hypocritical, but yeah, it is what it is, I guess.
But Ahsoka offers to give Grogu the Beskar chainmail on his behalf so Grogu won't be distracted by Mando's presence. And I love this. As Mando takes one last look at Grogu, sunlight shines on his shoulder. This is the same sunlight we saw beaming down on Grogu during their meditation through the bamboo leaves, a form of the Force surrounding and comforting them both. And now it gleams on the exact shoulder where the Mudhorn sigil is on Mando's armor, a sigil that Mando chose as his signet from the moment that Grogu used the Force to save him. The moment these two were really fused together. As Mando Starfighter departs, Grogu reaches his little hand as if trying to muster the Force to force pull his friend back to.
Could you imagine if Grogu would just like star killered his ship back to them? It was like, no, father, you returned.
To him. Luke works on jumping with Grogu.
You're trying too hard. Don't try. Do.
Yes, of course, recalling Yoda's famous instruction.
Try not. Do. Or do not. There is no try.
Luke runs with Grogu in a backpack, just like Yoda rode his back during the training on Dagobah. He does the same kind of flips he did through the swamp. They climb up a bamboo stalk and just sway with the breeze, crouching tiger, hidden dragon style. And he says,
The wide world exists in balance. Feel the Force all around you. Through the Force, you will find balance as well.
And we hear the French horn of John Williams' Force theme, first heard when Luke gazed out on the binary sunset of Tatooine. And suspending them in the breeze like this is really just a metaphor for how connecting with the Force is like floating amidst nature, the kind of approach Luke takes with Rey on Ahch-To.
And between it all,
Balance.
Luke has Grogu balance on one foot, like the awkward handstands Yoda had him do. And then later, Grogu watches as Luke Star Wars kids with his lightsaber, the green blade reflecting in his eyes again, just like the sabers did during Order 66. So while he watches with great interest, I really do think he is associating those two moments. Luke uses one of those training remotes to test Grogu's reflexes like Obi-Wan used with him on the Falcon in A New Hope. Grogu at first rolls it like a ball, just like how he turned that spherical knob on Mando's ship into a ball toy, making it feel especially cruel when this remote zaps Grogu, when unlike Luke, he doesn't have a lightsaber to deflect it. I do like how this training remote moves with the same sudden stop-motioning shifts that it did in 1977. Grogu backflips away from it, eventually just straight up destroying it and drowning it, similar to how Grogu has quickly resorted to force choking in the past. Getting a head start on
that is
Disney doing
true.
the same thing to this actor.
You taught him well.
It's more like he's remembering than I'm actually teaching him anything.
Now, Grogu is over 50 years old, the same age Anakin Skywalker would have been, and if he had many masters over the years, as Ahsoka said, Grogu's Jedi training probably exceeded Luke's own. Ahsoka also says,
Sometimes the student guides the master.
likely referring to her relationship with Master Anakin, whom she taught quite a lot throughout the Clone Wars. They go on to say,
Sometimes I wonder if his heart is in it.
So much like your father.
now I assume she's referring to... No, I'm just kidding. Really, she sees a mentor doubting a student just as Anakin would do to her, doubt that she would later prove him wrong on. Mando returns to Tatooine and joins Boba Fett, Fennec Shan, Black Chrysanthemum, the mods, and the mayor's majordomo at this fun little moment.
Yeah, but he's kind of in chains though, so it's not like he's there willingly.
Us to believe the storm is about to break.
It was a scheduled vacation, actually.
And you'll notice as they strategize, Boba's helmet sits on the throne. Just a cool little way of signaling his authority throughout all of this. We see the skull of the crate dragon that Mando and the Tuskens and Cad Bane slayed. Now
Dude, I want
strapped
that
to the roof
hood
of a
ornament
Jawa
on my
sand
car.
prowler. That same crate dragon's rib cage now adorns the interior of the
Oh,
Mos Pelgo
shit,
saloon.
I didn't
They
even
actually
notice
disassemble
that.
And reassemble it piece
How
by
did I
piece to
miss
fit
that?
in through the door. Still, I love that they did.
Holy
this.
shit.
Mando asked Cad Bane for some backup.
Mos Pelgo might be good right now.
Freetown.
That just goes to show like how little I pay attention to the background half the time because I'm just so zoned in on the characters. Because the characters are just so rich and eye-catching, and then I'm just like, holy shit, I missed an entire fucking rib cage.
What?
It's called Freetown now.
We changed the name. Suits us better.
That Weequay proprietor is once again played by W. Earl Brown, who co-starred on HBO's Deadwood alongside Timothy Olyphant. The breeze that we saw in that opening image on the Vapor Spire vein returns, hitting a wind chime, signaling Cobb to gaze out on the horizon to see this slender figure approaching. This is just more great Western imagery to introduce this newcomer.
This is
Teased by
the
title,
best
"From the
intro
desert comes a stranger,
I think a
sauntering
character's
into you
gotten
like
in live
David
action in
Carradine." This is
any of
Cad
the
Bane,
any Star
Durr's
Wars
bounty hunter
thing.
from Clone Wars and Bad Batch, involved in a number of plots like holding senators hostage to free the annoyingly voiced Zero the Hutt. Also helping Sidious locate a bunch of Force-sensitive kids for a Sith army. Later on, joining the Separatists to try to assassinate Palpatine. And then in Bad Batch, kidnapping Omega. Also, in an unfinished Clone Wars episode, it was going to be revealed that the dent in Boba Fett's helmet was caused by a duel with Cad Bane. I expect that to come up next episode, along with Cad Bane's past scuffle with Fennec Shan that we saw last year on Bad Batch. He wears van braces on his wrists, and he has these breathing tubes that feed into his cheeks. This is not because he needs them to breathe normally, but to protect him from getting Force choked by a Jedi. And I love how his skin is now a paler blue and wrinkled compared to his animated form. It's a really cool way of showing how time has dried out this bounty hunter. He says,
Yeah, he's aged, man. Like 20, 30 years since the last time we've seen him.
All you've got to do is stay put and let things play out.
chilling voice work by Corey Burton, who voiced him on the animated series. This guy's known for his versatile voiceovers throughout the Disney parks in a number of titles. Cad Bane keeps his eyes hidden for most of the exchange until...
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
I'd be careful where I was sticking my nose if I were you.
These eyes are so effectively alarming to see in live action, signaling the steely, Clint Eastwoody anger that Cobb didn't already know who he was. And he drops that great line about his nose, despite Cad not having a nose. That jumpy deputy Scott is played by J.J. Danshaw, who has actually been Tamara Morrison's stunt double in past episodes. While Cad and Cobb remain frozen in this tense standoff, so well edited, the deputy fidgets and shifts his weight around. This is what causes Cobb to take his eyes off Cad for just a split second as the drawing happens. But since Cad never took his eyes off Cobb, he wins the draw, shooting Cobb in the shoulder, just a flesh wound, but he did shoot him in his shooting arm, a pretty serious injury. The deputy, meanwhile, he ain't got no respect.
Yeah. He lit him
Joe
up.
takes the fastest glance at the deputy, but still runs over to the marshal. I mean, I get it. It's a triage scenario, but it still reminded me of those nurses going for Mr. Burns instead of Smithers. Two Pikes bring a Camp Toto into Garsa Fwip's Sanctuary Cantina, where the usual faces can be seen. There's Rodian, there's an R3X dealer, there's an RA7 Protocol droid, there's a Shastra fan, there's a Snivian with beautiful hair. Maybe she's born with it. Snivians are a throwback to a Snaggletooth action figure from Kenner, modeled on a background extra that you can see in the Cantina in A New Hope. But this Camp Toto goes boom! A classic gangland bombing like the Al Capone bombing in The Untouchables, that's directed by Brian De Palma, who actually wrote the opening crawl of the first Star Wars film. And I love this. Notice how one frame before that Camtono explodes,
Yeah, she
Garza is
realizes
about to
it.
say something as if she realized a moment before what was about to happen. Now,
Yep.
the band in the scene includes that Bith guitarist and that astromech drummer, but
No Max.
Rebo. What? Seriously, this is some Cersei skipping the Sept trial shit. This guy's got an inside source because somehow he also survived the explosion of Jabba's yacht. Max is f***ing in on it. And not showing his band. Cool little detail in the transition here. The flames transition right to Luke's finished school, giving us just a few frames showing that fire blazing up from beneath the school, foretelling this school's own future fiery end. Now, inside this temple are shelves containing a number of artifacts, which in the wide profile shot may include a couple withered books on that shelf. Perhaps these are the sacred Jedi texts that Luke actually spent this era of his life tracking down. Luke unwraps Mando's gift to Grogu, Beskar chainmail armor, Mithril.
Yeah.
Actually, the framing from Luke's perspective already drapes it over Grogu's body. Fits like a glove. But Luke gives him another option.
This is a lightsaber.
Can we get him something other than this potato bag?
It belonged to my teacher, Master Yoda. And now, I'm offering it to you.
Again, John Williams' Yoda theme returns here. And yes, I love the return of Yoda's shorter lightsaber, first seen in Attack of the Clones, falling from his hands during his duel with Sidious in Revenge of the Sith. It was revealed to be destroyed in Darth Vader comics number 1.
That's what I thought.
However, a later comic, Age of the Rebellion, does hint that Yoda might have reassembled the saber when he was on Dagobah, so he probably had it with him.
Yeah,
on
'cause
Dagobah
I thought it was
when he
melted
died,
down,
when Luke
though.
was there, keeping it in that wooden box. If you think about it, just like Luke's lightsaber was kept in a wooden box in Maz Kanata's basement. This being a child's choice between two lives is another parallel between these series and Lone Wolf and Cub, when a child is made to choose between the sword and a toy, the path of a warrior or the life of a normal stupid kid. And this episode leaves Grogu's choice uncertain.
A lot of
Oddly,
Lone Wolf
given
and
how
Cub
wary
in this.
child likely remains about the danger of green lightsabers from his most traumatic memory and the way he reached out for Mando. I think it is likelier that he's gonna choose that Beskar armor, especially when I think the series is setting him up to wield the dark saber anyway. He is a being of both Mandalorian and Jedi custody, just as Tar Vizsla was.
Yeah, Luke, do your research. There's such a thing as a both. Look it. Find it. He was in the order.
Bring it full circle. It's like poetry, you're right. But as we cut to black, perhaps my favorite detail of this episode, if you look very, very closely, Grogu's mouth begins to open. Might be a small detail, but the episode's audio description specifically called this out. I think we cut away right as Grogu was about to utter his first word. What would that word have been, I wonder? Mando! Maybe he just pukes up like 30 frogs. Hey, if you live in the Chicago area, you gotta come see New Rockstars live on February 11th, 8 p.m.
Sadly,
Talia Hall.
I do
Ticket
not
link in the description. We're gonna be
live
doing some
anywhere near
wacky,
any of that
fun
shit,
stuff that
so
we never do here on the channel.
good
Please
old
come out to meet us. You can follow me on
rural
Instagram and Twitter
living,
at
man.
EA Voss. Follow New Rockstars and subscribe
Go
to
check
New
these
Rockstars
guys
for
out,
more
man.
analysis of
Follow
everything you
Eric,
love.
follow,
Thanks for
and
watching.
subscribe to New
Bye-bye.
Rockstars. Yeah, great breakdown, man. Speaking of his eyes and expression, there is one moment that he didn't call out that I definitely noticed in my reaction and before, but there's a slight moment, and it's more of a comedic moment. It's not like a serious miss or anything like that. Like when, you know, there's the whole thing with him and the frog towards the beginning of the episode where he's like, you know, floating the frog. He lets it get away after Luke calls him out on it. And then when Luke raises that entire smorgasbord of frogs, just that slightest, there's like 2 or 3 frames, maybe some in that range, when you see Grogu turn his head and his eyes just go, holy fuck, that's a lot of frogs. And I don't think it was like, holy shit, that's awesome. I think he was like, holy shit, that's a lot of food. I think he was like, yeah, dinner time. That's how I read that moment. It was just hilarious to me. Just a small thing. But yeah, like, like I was saying, man, it's like easy to get distracted in this and miss stuff in the background, but holy fuck, man, I'm dumbfounded. I did not notice that rib cage at the bar. What the fuck? Ah, my God, man. How? Tell me. Yeah, man, great breakdown. I don't really have too much else to add that I hadn't already inserted into this. So yeah, Guys, are you excited? Do you think the Marshal lives? It was just his shooting arm. They were tending to him. With the technology they have, I'm sure they might be able to spare him, get him out of this situation. But that disrespectful little bounty deputy, deputy, same thing. He got lit the fuck up. That guy's dead. Easy, hands down dead. But yeah, Cobb better be alive. That's all I gotta say. I love Timothy in this role, and I want to continue to see this character maybe show back up in the future, or even help out in the final conflict. Even if he might not be able to contribute like physically by fighting, he might be able to lead his troops as Mando had intended him to do. But yeah, definitely shows that Luke still has a lot to learn, and unfortunately, as long as they stay on course, he doesn't. So there's that. But yeah, I really wish we could have seen Luke and Ahsoka meet for the first time, and I'm really hoping that maybe we reserve that for the Ahsoka series, because we don't know. Because when she went off after she got that information about Thrawn in season 2 of Mando, we don't necessarily know how much time has passed. She obviously goes back, and I'm assuming that the scene we saw at the end of Rebels where she comes to find Sabine after she gets some of that information, that's the next time we see her. And then I would either after she leaves Luke is when that whole thing starts, or she did that and now has concluded whatever that mission is and comes back here. So maybe we'll see that first meeting in her show. I hope so. I really do, because I want to see those conversations. Those are conversations a lot of us have been talking about since we found out she's still around. And at the same time that Luke is, out there journeying the galaxy, researching the Jedi artifacts and all that stuff, and about to start a school. Like, we've all talked about how much healing these two could bring to one another by talking to each other. And I really would love to see that conversation. That said, guys, what'd you think of the breakdown? What'd you think of the episode? Sound off the comments. Let me know your thoughts down below. We'll carry on the conversation after the video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Feel free to join our Discord. We can talk about things there as well. Follow me on all my socials, please. And yeah, before we go, I want to shout out our channel legends: Mandy Sherritt, Ryan Karen, Jason Coleman, Philly Vane, York Korscott, Margaret Grace, Mary Bradley, Nate Prouty, Emo Slytherin, and Melita. Thank you guys so much for your support, and everybody else who's been supporting the channel. And I'll see you guys next week with the finale of the Book of Boba Fett. For now, may the Force be with you always. Take care, everybody.